Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Occult Explorers. I'm Snappy, and I'm joined today by my co-host and dear friend Shay. How's it going, Shay? You're muted, Shay. You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay, all right. Hey, hi, Shay. How's it going?
As Dion says, and we miss him dearly, life is good.
Life is good. Life is good. Unfortunately, Dion was called into work, but he may be able to join us later on in the show. Fingers crossed. But we do have a special guest, my dear friend Leslie Selene. How's it going, Leslie?
Good. I'm here. I don't know what day it is. I have jet lag, but I'm here and I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
really
to
excited. I've been
everyone.
watching the shows with
Right.
Shay and them. She's such a brilliant scholar. I am in illustrious company. And
Oh,
I
thank
just
you, my
have I
darling.
have my little report here.
Oh, no,
How
it's
beautiful.
yeah. I've just done some stuff. That's all.
Yeah, man. You did good this year.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show, Leslie. We're really excited to have you here. So everyone, please give Leslie a bit of grace. She has been traveling. She recently moved to Crete. And as she said, she is jet lagged, but she's here with us to provide us with her perspective on Italian witchcraft. And you have a really interesting, unique perspective because you actually moved to Italy, lived in Italy for several years, and are a practicing witch. So why don't you introduce us? I know my audience should know you, but just reintroduce yourself and tell us a bit about your experience with Italian witchcraft.
Hello, my name is Leslie Selene, and my name is a bridge. My mother was a Dianic witch, which I elected not to join. So I didn't wind up learning a whole lot about that. But I moved to Italy when I was in my 20s, and I got married and had a baby, and was living out in the country. And it's kind of wasn't a thing, Catholic countries, people who come from countries with separation of church and state kind of take this for granted, but there isn't that. The reason it exists in the newer worlds is because it did not exist in the older ones, still doesn't. So you can still get in trouble for witchcraft in the Mediterranean. In Greece, definitely, it just became illegal a couple of years ago, and in Italy, it's been legal, but the taboos are heavy, so very few people talked about it at that time. Um, what you had was folk traditions, and so the witch hunts were so complete. They lasted 300 years, and in some villages there weren't any women left. So this is what you're dealing with: this kind of destruction. When you go to the museum, you see all those statues with no head. It didn't just fall off; somebody smashed it. This went on. Christians weren't happy until there was no more art and no more medicine in the whole of Western Asia. So that's the kind of recovery that you're dealing with Italian witchcraft. And you start with the food. You learn the plants for your salad and your dinner, and then it kind of slips in to the conversation, the medicinal herbs after trust is established. That's how bad it was. It was 30 years ago. And it's much better now. Partly because of what we're talking about in the slideshow. Ah, progress happens, healing happens.
All right. Should I bring up your slideshow? Do you want to begin?
Yeah, let's go.
All
Yeah.
right. Oh, 1 second here. Sorry. Okay. Here we go.
So, this dear man named Raven Gramasti, he wrote this book called Italian Witchcraft, and it was most people's introduction to Italian witchcraft. Came out
When
in
did this?
2000. We
Yeah.
just looked it up. Huh?
When did it come out? Sorry.
You said we just looked it up. It was 2000.
Right.
Yep. 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And And so Raven's maternal grandfather was from southern Italy and belonged to a tradition of Italian witchcraft, and taught him this. So this tradition, right, is after Leland, it's after Graves, and it has incorporated these elements into it. It's also got Masonic elements in it.
Mhm.
Right. So
Because
this is a
why?
modern
Because
reconstruction.
why? Because Italian witchcraft, why is it the motherland of witchcraft? Because it's always been an inclusive tradition, and that's like voodoo. It that's how you make a witchcraft that works. And so
It's interesting you say that too, because that's what we've noticed when we were talking about a lot of the magical history, with King Numa, right? He's the bridge to bringing together all these
yeah,
various tribes and
yeah,
uniting them under a religious
yeah.
system. But
And
really,
it
it's
just
dozens of
geographically,
tribes.
Italy is a crossroads,
Right.
every piece of it.
Right. And
So
that's the big thing that Roman culture kind of offered was that,
mm.
their big contribution is that they brought everything into amalgamation. They were willing to adapt everything, you know?
So give me the next one. That's Raven Grimassi. We lost Raven in, I think it was 2018, to pancreatic cancer. But he was very soft spoken, very gentle man, and he really got across what is the essence of Italian witchcraft is you go into the woods by yourself and you talk to the plants and the rocks. And he taught ways of introducing yourself to the plants because they're used to, oh, here comes another one, they're going to stomp on us. And so you really, he taught all this repair and all this healing in every step of the process. And so and presented as a growing living tradition. So what's the next one now?
But Shay, you knew
Yeah.
Raven. Can you talk a bit about Raven and your experience with them?
I can't hear. I can't hear Snappy. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear
Can
you
you?
and Snappy.
You can't
All
hear
right.
me?
I can't hear Snappy. Can you hear me, Snappy?
I can hear you clearly.
Yeah. I'm going to pop out, pop back in.
Okay. All right.
See if that works.
We'll give her a second here if you want to continue.
Well, just a couple of covers of his books. There were some novels and some neo-pagan books. Wrote a good number of books before passing on. And then, around the same time, go back to the Giovanni Feo. Well, unless Shay wants to say something about Raven.
Oh, he was just the sweetest man. He was so
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah,
And so giving. Like he wouldn't take sides in a debate and he just believed magic was for everybody. He
yeah,
was just the most open, wonderful man. He really was.
yeah. And really popularized Egeria and Italian witchcraft.
No,
It,
I've
it
lost
wasn't
Leslie.
much discussed before that. And so this is Giovanni Peo. In 2004, Giovanni Vale found Poggiotta, and he found it not because he's an academic, but because he's a psychic. He was hearing voices and tromping around in the woods, and he came upon the Etruscan Stonehenge. So it's been dated to about 5,000 years ago. It's organized like a calendar. You go there and people go there at the solstices and the equinoxes, and the lights is shining through all the right places. It's got little shelves where you stick your candles. And they did testing on it. They did, what is it, I can't remember what it's called now, but the sound resonance, and it's radioactive as heck. You can't. I mean, it's like if you're gonna go sleep in there, it would be like getting chemotherapy. So don't. And you just come there and you do your ritual, and then you clean up and you go. And so this monument, like many other monuments in Italy, are in use. And this his finding this opened up the last chapter of the prophecy of Aradia, is that when it's safe, we're gonna go back, we're gonna come out of hiding, and we're gonna go practice in the sites of our ancestors, which will be revealed, and this has occurred.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing.
Yes, yes. So
So
now
he's a
you go
psychic
and
and he
yeah,
found this.
yeah.
And now
And
it's
then
been
and then he
confirmed
wrote
by
20
archaeology.
books. And then he wrote 20 books on Etruscans. And he,
Oh
but he
wow.
right away called the academics to come date it and excavate and do all the things. So yeah,
Oh
everybody
wow.
talks about Giovanni Feo. The next
How
one,
interesting.
yeah, here he is, and that's Poggiotta. That's the Etruscan Stonehenge.
Oh
Strong
wow.
is small, and so Geografia Sacra, sacred geography. This is the Italian witchcraft is completely tied to the earth. Next one is as their inside little radioactive little calendar, and the
It's
next
small,
one.
eh?
It's small. And so then time, according to the Etruscans, that's a book he wrote. And then the next one, oracles.
Oh wow.
And then he wrote a couple novels, I think.
How
This
interesting.
and then this is Selma. Selma, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce your last name, darling. It's a Dutch last name, and I just love this lady and Ibaya. She's also passed over. She was the first professor of gender studies at a university in the Netherlands, and most of her books are books about social work. Um, you know, addressing racism and social services and stuff like that.
Oh, beautiful.
And uh, and then her last years, she moved to central Italy, and she was studying the La Sirena, the Melusine, the two-tailed mermaid in
Right.
iconography from Etruscan to Matilda of Canossa. And she wrote
Right.
several books on the subject. And she was also researching Matilda of Canossa was also part of the cult of Mary Magdalene, and that whole tradition, how it evolved from a
Yeah,
pre-Christian
this
source.
relates to the founding of the French kings. There's a bunch of this weird stuff with the
Yeah, the
Melusine.
Oh,
Merovingians and what have
Right.
you, and the
And it has to
Templars.
also
Yeah,
do with
yeah,
the siren mythology. You
yeah,
know, the sirens are described sometime, in similar ways.
yeah.
Scylla, right? There's all
Mm.
these. Anyway, it gets really interesting.
So
I
give me
know
the next one. Huh? Sorry.
Shay knows a bit about the Melusine.
Oh yeah,
oh, the Melusina is like a patroness goddess of most of the European royal houses,
yeah.
and they all try and claim a lineage back to her because she is the spirit of the waters that grants them the kingship.
She's an nymph.
So
Lady of
yeah,
Delight.
yeah, and I mean Starbucks uses it today as a measure of success. So they appeal to Melusina on all of their cups to bring them success in their war and commerce. Yeah.
And she used to lead trips. She used to lead goddess worshiping trips. Art. You get there and you paint. You get there and you drum. And she was a load of fun. When I first met her, somebody told me, "Oh yeah, you can stay in my friend's apartment." We roll up. She yells out the window, 6 foot tall, huge Dutch woman. Have you been to Rocamadour? And I had just come from Rocamadour, so I said, "Well, yes, actually, I have." Have you awakened the dragon? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, we did. Good, so I won't have to go there myself. Thank you. And then she gets in her car and tears off somewhere else. But I didn't know her. Like, she had no way of knowing. Anyway, she was a real witch. Give me
Oh,
the next one. This is the Via Cava in Selvena. This is the area that she researched extensively. These are these hallways that are carved into the tufa, and they can't be anything but rituals because you can go around and it's much simpler. You can just walk across the. You don't have to, right? Like there's no reason. It's an initiatory corridor, and again they research it with sound vibration because all of these monuments are built to amplify sounds in certain ways. And
right.
so
And the
the next
walking of paths is such a huge part of the Greek and Roman mysteries. We see that with the various labyrinths. We see that in all of the classical mystery rites. Famously, the Eleusinian path you have to walk. So yeah, this is wild.
Mm.
and so there she is, the Melusine. She goes way back. That's
Oh,
in
wow.
a church from the 11th century.
Yeah, we have to remember too, these churches were also built on the ruins, right,
Oh, yeah,
of older temples. So wow,
Yeah.
always.
that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And there she is in Bomarzo. When was it? 17th century nobleman's garden with her nice bush there, and it's titled the Echidna.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the echidna. And this is also, isn't this the same garden that has that famous Artemis of Ephesus with the fountain?
No, that's a different one, but it's the
Oh,
same time period. Yeah,
right, right, same time period.
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful though. Wow. Bringing
Yeah.
back the echidna.
Mm.
So that's the book she wrote. I won't try to pronounce it.
Funny.
And I think there's another one. She also has written about 20 books. Oh no, this is Sophie de Lavant. She's a witch that lives in Tuscany. She started out as a dancer, and then she had her awakening experience through cranial sacral therapy and began to hear the voice of the muse. And so she moved out into the countryside. Same thing, drawn to central Italy. This is the heart of magic. And she wrote this book called the Conflict Between Women. So she does feminist groups, women's groups, to reconnect with the earth, to reconnect with each other, to reconnect with Mother Earth. And everybody agrees this is step one in Italian witchcraft. And then the next one,
Isn't that a central part of your practice, Shay, balancing Artemis and Aphrodite?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've been a couple of people on the chat have noticed that I've been drinking from Wonder Woman cups, which is Diana Prince. And now, so we've got Aphrodite here today. Um, so, but this is the thing. Like I've given a talk on the goddess energy at a goddess conference, and I've said now women have got to stop picking on each other.
yeah, man.
And it's like they talk about the victimization of women by men in the workplace, but the victimization of women by women in the workplace is far worse, right? They
Yes.
stop each other's progress in business. They and the jealousy that has to get under control.
Somehow the
Right?
betrayal is worse. That's what the Epstein survivors said about Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
They
So
said the
you've just
betrayal was cut deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, so women have, and this is about women learning to support each other instead of, and that's what Greek myth is always about. There's a high side and a low side. Even the gods can fall to the low side, but if you go to the high side, you become divine. So, balancing those two energies within yourself stops the jealousy, stops the conflict, and multiplies, doubles instantly your goddess power. Mhm.
And this is her latest Voices of the Earth, and it's the sweet disobedience of the shamanic path is the title.
That is so beautiful. Wow. And I love the art.
Yeah, she does her cover art. I first met her, and she was reading from her previous book at a bookstore, and there was somebody there who wasn't entirely comfortable with feminism, and they were like, "Ah, revolution," and she just looked at them, and she has the softest, sweetest voice, and she reached down and picked up a pebble from the ground, and she
Mhm.
turned it over in her fingers, and she says, "This is a revolution. That's all it is. Just this."
Mhm. Sorry, we just gained a co-host. Sorry about that.
Yay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
it's interesting hearing about all of these different women in Italian strega, but
Yeah.
what I loved about magic in Italy was that even though it's banned on one side, on the other side, what we have is like you have your morning magic ritual show, just like we might have morning prayers in
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
You can have the magician in the morning, and he comes on and does his big proselytation about how you do your magic in the morning, and you have the street of the magicians, right beside the Vatican City, which is what they based Diagon Alley on in Harry Potter. And even though, they went through this inquisition, they kept the magic near the Vatican in case they
Oh
needed
yeah.
it. And
Oh
to
yeah.
this day, the magic is still honoured there. You know,
Well,
and the Stragers are even thought about affectionately. Like
and
everybody's like
if you could, you could even hide out in the church.
oh, absolutely hide. They don't hide.
You
They're right.
know, I mean, Teresa of Avila, she was a witch before she was a nun. A lot of
Yeah,
people, Nostradamus, what kind of name is that? It definitely a witch before was a clergy person. And so, a
yeah.
lot of monasteries were set up for that, where they were herbology monasteries or they were music monasteries and illuminated manuscript copying monasteries. You went on purpose.
Yeah, most of
But,
the famous grimoires were actually written by priests,
right?
right? Because they did practice, and they still
Yeah.
practice to this day.
Yeah.
But it's that competition thing again. You know, every family in Italy has a strega nonna. You know, she helps out with this stuff, and it's all
Oh, yeah.
known. But
Yeah.
you don't speak about that in church because the priests get jealous. You know, if you should be doing the legitimate, authorized magic, not this other stuff. You know, yeah.
Well, this is why it becomes so interesting, right? By the time you get to the 15th century, the 16th century, you start to see these competing forms of Christianity emerge, where they
Mm,
are adapting the magical tradition through that Christian lens, right?
mm,
As we see in the grimoire tradition, and then it
mhm,
develops within these secret societies, such as the various offshoots of the Rosicrucians and the other Enlightenment societies, like the Bavarian Illuminati and the
mhm,
Masons and the Martinists. But they're
mhm,
all involved in, if you look at, if, like, you go and you read someone like Alpheus Levi, who is widely considered the
mhm,
godfather of modern magic in the West.
mhm,
And
mhm,
they are very much a Catholic priest. And they are, they're yelling and freaking out against Satanism. And they're offering you a version of this kind of magic that's about
mhm,
enslaving and dominating these
mhm,
spirits. And
mhm.
eventually he abandons all of that and returns back to an Orthodox Catholicism,
Well,
so
and we have Louis de Montfort. You know, I know because he's like in the family in the Wayback Tree, and he has this ecstatic vision of the goddess when he's out in a grove, and he goes, "Oh, we've left the goddess out of Christianity," and he writes the Marian prayers. So the
yeah.
whole Mary being included in the Catholic Church is 100% goddess worship, and he's
Well,
and like you
that's the
read.
thing is you can't spend a whole bunch of time in prayer and silence and not hear her.
Mm,
And
No, and
so it's just gonna keep happening. For example, this right here, Loretta Stella, La Strega di Montenerone. She lives in the mountains in the Marche, and she's an herbalist. That's all.
mm,
She
mm,
teaches people about all the plants. If you come over, she'll take you for a walk on the
mm,
mountain. And give me the next one.
well, just before we were talking to Leslie, and I talked to Dr. Carla Ionescu about this,
Yeah.
and one of the things, like, we see right from the beginning of the Catholicization of the Roman Empire, the perversion and the adaptation of the cult of Cybele and the cult of Diana, right? Emperor Julian warns us about this and purposely reveals the
mm.
the hidden myth of Attis Gallus, which was kept hidden within the Great Mother cult. But he reveals this for the purpose of protecting it. And when you read that myth, it is the Jesus story. They
Yes.
just steal it. They just steal it full, and they just take the Great Mother and make her a vessel rather than the source. It's
Yeah.
Well,
it's
It's,
let me
you
show
know
you the next picture
sure.
because this is very much alive. This is where this lady lives, and then the next picture. This is the cave of the Sibyl in the
mm,
Sibylline Mountains. That's right where this lady lives. Okay,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
here's the next one. You can go there. You can go inside there. This is a living thing. You see,
Right.
nothing died. This is the
Mm,
importance of the myth of Aradia. The myth of Aradia only begins at the Inquisition. It doesn't
mhm,
even
mhm.
tell you anything about Italian witchcraft at all. It just said there was this lady who said, okay, listen, they're coming for you. Everybody hide. We're going to learn how to do this out in the woods, no sacred sites, no nothing. You just hide, and we're gonna do it. And they split the genders at that point. It wasn't like that before. The men over here, the women over here. So there's no problems. and and we're gonna do it like that for 500 years, and then we're gonna come out. And then when it's safe, we're gonna go back. And this is exactly what's happened.
Is
So
that beautiful green color polished stone, or is that paint?
I can't see it. I think it's just a rock. Can you go to the next one? Maybe we
It's
can
it's
see.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just this moss and stuff.
the
Yeah.
moss. Yeah, yeah,
And
it's good.
and then the next
Wild.
one.
Yeah, it looks so alive.
So
Yeah.
that's the entrance. It looks like nothing, right? So
Right.
that's the thing. There was
Beautiful.
way too much of that secret society stuff and too
Yeah.
much of the church. I don't know a
Mm.
single family in Italy that isn't affected by clerical sexual abuse. They hit somebody in each family and they do it on purpose. And it
Yes.
fucks everybody up. It screws
We
up
see
the
My
these
relationship with
cycles. We see the
God.
cycles of power, right? Right.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the Catholic Church was this oppressive monstrosity. So then those secret societies arose as a counter. But then
Yeah.
what had happened with those societies? They
They
became
were the same.
monstrosities.
They were the
We
same
saw this in
because they
American history
didn't heal
explicitly,
first.
right?
So
There was even at one point anti-Masonic parties because the Masons were running around poisoning everything,
well,
like
that's the thing. I don't know any Italian witches who do system.
right,
Nobody does system. They eschew system. System is patriarchy. Anytime you get a system going, you got your ego in it. And so they do systems like herbal medicine,
right.
they do systems like chemistry or shamanic dreaming, but they're quite suspicious. They're like, look, until you know all your plants, until you can hear the voice of the muse, until you can sit down on any spot in the earth and make that your sacred spot, don't talk.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
you can write
Right.
novels. You can write, you know what I mean? You can tromp around the woods. Come with me, I'll show you the plants. Come with me, I'll show you the rocks. But they don't,
But we see
you
this
know.
silence, though, even inherent from the beginning of the tradition, right? King Numa
Yes.
doesn't discuss this.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
meant to go sit in the silence by the river, and she babbles to you,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
then that's for you,
Yeah.
Mhm.
unless she gives you a book, then you write it down, and now you got to
Yeah.
sell it to us,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's always been amazing that people it's like trying to isolate magic from people is like trying to isolate people from their sexuality.
Yeah.
Magic and people just go together. But what we have with the arising of the church is that unless it's legitimized church magic and miracles, then everything else is the opposition. And people forget that the word Satan only means opposition. All right.
Yeah.
So it becomes this, all right, you're either legitimate or you're heretical. And far worse than witchcraft were the heresy trials,
Yeah.
So if it was the heresy, anything opposing the church. And if you weren't doing our legitimate system, they actually eliminated the other systems. There's lots of systematic forms of female magic, right? But they eliminated those because they saw them as opposition,
Well,
right?
right. So what's left is you take an egg, you know, and you
Mm,
roll it down the body, and then you break
mm,
it in the plate and you read the egg.
mm,
You take a plate of water, you put a drop of olive oil in there, and you read the drop.
mm,
Right? We're like, we're reduced to this. Okay, we can do it like this, right? I can do it with just a drop of olive oil and an egg, no problem. And they did it for centuries like that.
mm. You can't isolate magic from people no matter what you do. They find a way.
Yeah.
It's like the more you try and suppress sexuality, the more it's going to come out. Right? And it's the same with magic.
Yeah.
Well, and you see a twisting of these things, but they don't really fall away. It's like the Larrys of ancient Rome become the brownies, become the fairies,
Right.
and all the tales. Like you know, in the early tradition, the tales are mixed. Sometimes these spirits are the best thing for you, especially the house ones, but
Mm.
oftentimes they'll trick you. But by the time you get to the later tradition, they're all nasty, you know, and you got to run and
Oh,
hide from the
no,
fairies.
no, no. Like, well,
And
no, like
they do like
my
good stuff.
husband's father was a miner, and he used to talk
Mm,
about how the brownies saved his life.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you
yeah.
heard the tapping in the mine by the brownies. They were warning you, get out now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
you
so
do have
that
those folk traditions, but I just mean like from the literature and whatnot, you have this grand shift, right?
mm,
And it becomes, what I mean is like the tradition survives, but it
mm,
becomes, you have to have it be negative. It's just
mm,
like, it's like the way that a lot of queer literature survived
Well,
under
and
this.
it'll make you negative. That's how Mediterranean magic got reduced to malocchio. What
Right,
you,
mm,
your
right,
neighbor
right.
is gonna be envious of you. But I guarantee you, during the Inquisition, just like under fascism, your
mm,
neighbor's word about you is life or death. And so
mm.
Yeah.
they all have traditions around malocchio, and you've got an envious neighbor, and they say mean things about you, and this is how to take that energy
But this is
off you.
this is how also, you know, how we do subversion. It's like, you know, so you're telling me I can't talk about gay people unless I'm shaming them. Okay, well we'll shame them then, and we'll do it anyway. And so
Mm.
the stuff survives, but you have to follow these tropes. And you see the same thing in the fairy literature. You see the same thing in all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a way for it to survive.
And it's no
I mean,
secret that monasteries were queer hideouts, also.
Oh,
Duh.
absolutely,
Yeah.
right?
mm. I mean, and even Apuleius, before the advent of the church, you know, they got jealous of him because he was a magician. He was had a great life. You know, the results of his magic were working. He had a beautiful, beautiful older woman who married him who was richer, and they went, "See, it's magic,"
Yeah, yeah.
and they took him to court. And that,
Right,
hence we have the Apuleius defense that witches can use today. And I actually had to use that one.
right.
I had to go to court accused of witchcraft. And I went, if you were really scared of me, you wouldn't have me in court, which was his defense. You know, if you really think magic works and you're terrified of it, why the hell am I here? you know?
Well, you know, and it's like people though forget, okay, the golden ass and Apuleius, this is some of the most radical stuff in that period, right? Like
Mm,
the goddess tradition was thriving, but it was under attack and it was
mm,
being suppressed. And
mm,
Apuleius is a figure who reveals this, as you said, right? He's charged for witchcraft, and he largely writes the golden ass, we suspect, as a response. And it's a retelling of a classic Greek tale. There are earlier versions. There's the version
mm.
that's the pseudo Lucian, right?
Yeah.
And then that one is supposedly written on an earlier Orphic version. But Apuleius writes his version basically to defend the Great Mother cults and to defend witchcraft, you know, and to
Mhm.
make a parody of all these people freaking out about it all. It's
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're afraid of it, you'll go and marry an ass or you'll be one. You know, it's like, it's perfect. I
Well, and
love it.
so that's what worked, is to just keep doing it. You know,
Yeah.
right.
Loretta Stella, she spends every minute of every day in it,
Mm,
and you can do that as long as you don't, open your big mouth, or just really need attention, right?
mm,
Like 'cause some people are just theatrical and they need attention when they get in trouble. But there's no break. There's no broken tradition that you have to rebuild. No, it's all here. Show me the next picture.
Right.
This is the Sibylline Mountains. I mean, you can't take a picture of it that looks the same either. It's just constantly changing light, and it is just a deeply magical place.
Well, you're
And
so
then
right though, what you're talking about. I just did a talk with our dear friend Veldane. And
yeah,
you know, Veldane is he's all
I love
about
that show.
nature. He met
Yeah.
he met the goddess in nature.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that he came at this entirely without the text, and then the text confirmed his experience.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, you can find the Great Mother just by engaging the earth. All of this can be restored to us. We don't need to have, tradition is
But
important.
also,
It's
to
beautiful.
detox from something like the Roman Empire, which, by the way,
Right.
didn't end. The Pope is still the emperor,
Right.
still owns half of everything. Um, to detox from that, there is a sense that we must return to an indigenous way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you look at Italo Calvino wrote a beautiful collection of Italian folk tales. They do not have a beginning, a middle, or an end. None of them do. Okay. The Etruscans were the prototype for what we now call anarcho syndicalism. You start with local government, and as you spread out, you join forces instead of
Yeah.
fighting. And,
We have these
and your
little cities,
economy flourishes,
right?
and and your measure is how much you have to give. That was their measure of success. They're sharing everything that they have, and they didn't use the gold for money. They used it for jewelry because they're flashy and they liked it. And so
Mhm.
the 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 memory of an anarchist society that was much more successful than the one we have now is alive. And so the return to an indigenous way of thinking means a return to a story with no beginning, no middle, and no end. That
Right.
is, however, engaging.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to this, it's a return to the Chthonian, as opposed to this. We've lost this cyclical function, right? We've gone entirely into that patriarchy and entirely into that pursuit of life beyond the earth. And we need
Yeah.
to heal the earth, re-engage the earth, deal with life here, right?
Yeah,
New
they're so funny
generation.
about it. Italians are like, "Oh, that's enough transcendence for 1 century," and
Well, they
Yeah.
see where it's gone, right?
Yeah. Well,
yes,
they, I mean, and you've got to understand that the reason why the church is so anti-feminine was, well, there used to be a male pope and a female pope. There was a female line of popes, and the
Mm,
Santa
mm,
Guglielma and the
mm,
Guglielmites
mm.
actually made a prophecy that once the female pope did a mass in the temple of Magdalena Medjugorje over there, that she would end up ending the male papacy. And of course, that prophecy, they went after them after that, even though they were a legitimate dualistic, because they had a dualistic papacy right from, you had your Byzantium Empire and the Roman Empire, and there was a dual head, but then the dual head became feminine. And this has been erased from history. But this is why, the Guglielmites still exist, right?
Right.
Surprisingly, but they're very quiet about it now. They keep it quiet. They're on the down low,
well,
and
and
they just, yeah.
the Italians rules are a suggestion, right? That
Mm,
nobody actually believes that the clergy is celibate. No one believe, like, you would have to be 2 years old to believe that, right?
mm,
The same way nobody actually believes that Mary was a physical virgin. It's just they live with this, right? And so it's also taxes. They have these taxes that are like, give me 90% of your income because you're supposed to lie, right? Like, it's not straightforward, right? My
mm,
stepfather came from an anglicized society. When he fell in love, he went and told the bishop, and the bishop said, shut up, you know.
mm,
And he said, no, I won't, and he was excommunicated on the day of his wedding. But in Italy, that's just, what are you doing? Like, why
mm.
would you do that? why
Yeah,
why why do you need your ass in everyone's face? Just
yeah.
live your
Keep
life,
quiet.
have your
Keep
wife there,
quiet.
no one's gonna say anything, right?
Mm, mm,
And so they live with this, and the the true anarchist way of thinking, it is pushing up against that manhole lid all the
mm.
time, in their humor and everything they say. So
Right.
how about we go to the next one? Okay, this is Sabina Magliocco. She is from Kansas. She grew up half in Italy and half in Kansas. Her parents are Italian American. And she now is a professor at the University of British Columbia. She's a folklorist. This is one way to be a practicing witch and also an academic. So, because she is an academic and a good one and sharp as as a knife, she is the foremost authority today on Italian witchcraft. And so what she brought to the table is she brings in archaeology, and as a folklorist, because Leland was a folklorist, that's what we have left. How can you learn anything about Italian witchcraft in any other way? It's
So
what we
what
Exactly.
is
have
her
left.
perspective on Leland?
Yeah. Her perspective on Leland was she went and found the archaeological proof that Aradia in Sardinia was called, let me find it, Sarijusta. Sarijusta. By the way, Mircea Eliade also said that there was a Romanian version of the myth of Aradia. This was sage advice for anyone across the Mediterranean. Of course, they repeated it over and over again.
Right. I
So,
mean, I just keep thinking what Ammon said, Aradia and Egeria, it's like it's a very easy decline, changing of some couple syllables, and there you go, you know.
yeah, sociocultural anthropology. And she focuses on ritual, festival, religion, folklore, narrative belief. And she's working on a book on Italian healing traditions in magic. And she's written about gender identity and animal studies. That she's just super prolific. She did her fieldwork in Cornwall and in Sardinia, where they have the megalithic sites that are again in use. So Sari Justa, the witch of justice, she was worshipped together with Diana, the way they say Aradia was together with Diana. And then in Romania, another one, same. And and Sari Justa is the justice. So even during this 500 years projected dark times where you have to hide, you still step up when it's a question of justice. That's
That
code.
also
That's
that
code.
corresponds to the Pelasgian story, right? Because Themis, justice, comes with her son Evander and sets up the Palatine, the city on the Palatine Hill, the Palladium,
Yeah.
right? So wild.
So I
Yeah, and
have
then
a couple of her book covers. Go
you've
ahead.
also got the theological similarity between Aradia, Ariadne, Arwen, all of those goddesses that are associated with the stars and the moon, right, in different cultures, and from Greek to Celtic to all the way through, and. I often think about them trying to prove that Aradia exists. Like in Australia, we have a very famous song that just about every Australian has sung called Waltzing Matilda, right?
Uh-huh.
It's not about Matilda, but we have some academics that have gone and tried to find out if Matilda is a real girl. It is a song that every Australian knows. Whether or not Matilda is actually a real woman, who cares? We like the song. The song teaches us a lesson. Don't steal sheep because the police will come. That's
Right.
what it's about. And Aradia is obviously part of the folklore. You know, it's like going, did Sleeping Beauty really live? Did she really go to sleep?
There
You know,
there seems to be, it's I think part of the thing is that, there is this whole Italian witchcraft tradition that thrives within America, and it
um,
kind of evolves in a very distinct and unique
Oh,
way.
listen, where did they go? They say run, yeah. We're going to burn you at the stake unless you these fuckers got on tall ships. They came
Right.
here. That's who we are.
Right, exactly. So there is this tradition of expatriates and their descendants practicing various forms
Yes.
of witchcraft. But we also have to remember what you said. Even these expatriates who are leaving, they're building off of nothing. They're building off of, the very little things that they can get from their grandmothers. you know? So when they come to America, it takes on a very distinct American feel.
It
And now
does.
what we see is we see a lot of these Italian scholars pushing back, and we see a distinct tradition evolve in Italy, right? So now you get these two, they have the same roots, but they're distinct traditions.
Well, it's
And
like
so
voodoo,
part
because
of it
if
is
you're an
this argument
inclusive
here.
society, then yeah, what you're gonna wind up with is West Virginia Hollow Magic and Appalachian Magic and desert magic and you
And we
know.
always have to be honest about Leland. As much as I like his work, it's been heavily criticized by the indigenous communities,
Sure.
especially his writings of the myths. You know, he didn't consult living people. You know, it's he's a complicated character. He
Ah,
wrote some, he did some good, he did some bad, but the
yeah.
Aradia stuff seems to be very, very legit, and people
You
work with
know,
it and have
he
success
was
with
a
it.
folklorist. He was
Yeah,
collecting stories, and so whoever he talked to and didn't credit told him a good one with the radio. That's actually a real thing, and
right.
there's a whole indigenous tradition of sending the anthropologist to talk to the guy about coyote forever
Right.
and never tell them anything else except for coyote stories.
And then we've talked about this a lot, but we also, you know, I have my background in religion studies, and there is that whole Germanic school of religion studies that is kind of the dominant framework. You see it very well represented, for example, on YouTube. Uh, and this framework is very good for certain things. Like I love, for example, Dr. Justin Sledge's work on
Oh yeah,
esoterica. He's
what a
operating
kid.
from this framework largely. Dr. Angela Pucca, who talks a lot about Italian witchcraft. She does great work. She operates from this kind of a perspective. But these perspectives, they want to take these traditions and isolate them down. And they want to make them, you know, in their very own unique kind of cultural milieu. They want to have everything come from within and not be without. And you know, there's benefits and there's negatives to these kind of things, you know, like the modern German school, for example, rejects the Golden Bough and James Frazier. It rejects Robert Graves, you know. And I look at Robert Graves and I say there's some good and there's some bad there,
Yeah,
but i'm not
yeah,
i'm not going to reject it, you know,
Yeah.
no.
right.
And for his time, Robert Graves did a good job for his time. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Mm,
these things happen, we stand back, with 200 years distance and go, well, maybe he could have done a better job. Friggin' heck, it was 200 years ago.
right,
Well, that's
And
right,
he
why I'm
was,
showing you there's these
yeah,
people that have written
yeah,
20 books each on the subject in the meantime. Like, why are
yeah,
we still talking about Leland? We
yeah,
we all agree it's the person he was interviewing that was
yeah,
right or
it's
wrong.
Madalena that's interesting,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
And,
there's a
and look,
lot
fascinating.
and
going
this,
on in modern magic.
but what you both have said is really true. And I try and get this through to people all the time. You know, religious structure and order tries to keep these things in a framework, and academia is very much about, also it's a religion, you're trying to force things into a framework, when the truth
Absolutely.
is, when you're talking about a belief system, there are as many belief systems as there are people.
Yeah.
Every person is going to have a different take on something. They're going to see it slightly different. Or I do this. It's like a recipe. You might follow a recipe and then you put a bit of basil in it. Oh, that's better for me.
And then they
You
live
know,
it in their interior landscape in this unique way.
absolute.
Yeah.
You can't force another person to see and do it from your perspective. It's got to be what works for them. And if we take a lot of things, and we make this work for us, well, good. We have a really well balanced spiritual diet, but if we're looking at one framework, we're probably going to find ourselves malnourished on a spiritual level on one thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
we're all coming at this from a pagan perspective, so we have kind of a very, you know, open mindset to this kind of personal gnosis, because you know
mm,
we understand, you know, when you approach a divinity, it's like approaching an individual. They're going to act differently to every single person. They're going to
yep.
reveal different aspects of
Yeah.
themselves. No one is going to have the same kind of experience. And who are we to judge, right? You know, I don't know if you talk to Artemis. I don't know. All I could talk about is my own personal stuff and my own
Mm,
life. And this is such
mhm,
a an important thing. You know, what I see with people like Graves and with Frazier is the ultimate, the other extreme. where they want to reduce everything into these amount. We've talked about this a lot, Leslie, taking these women and turning them into amalgamation. All the great mothers are one, all of the goddesses are one. And
Yeah.
there are some traditions that do that, but
Big
that's
boob
one
theory. Yeah.
tradition, right? Not as authentic, like all these goddesses all have their own cults, their own myths, their own traditions often,
Well,
distinct from
show
that.
me the next slide, because that's
Mm.
kind of what she talks about. She talks
Mm,
about the two Madonnas in Sardinia. There's two. There's two in southern Mexico as well, by the way. And then the next
oh,
one, witching culture. There's subcultures, right? So she
right.
studies those. And what's the next one? There you go. Neo-pagan sacred art and altars. This is a whole, you can get your PhD in altars now. Did you know that? You can.
Oh, wow.
And
No,
it's because of
that's
people
excellent.
like her who go in there and open up
Yeah.
academia.
I mean, it would take a PhD for someone to break down and understand the shit I put in my altar.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
I was going to turn it around and show you. That's mine over there. It's 3
Yeah,
stories.
man.
Right?
Yeah, each
It all
story
has
has a
meaning to
story.
me, but good luck. Good luck figuring it out is my point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, it makes perfect sense, and that's all that
Exactly.
matters.
Well, that's the thing, is you can be sitting still in silence. You can be painting in silence. You can be puttering about the house in silence. And that's when the music's going to speak to you. So
Yeah.
it
Mm.
comes out in our paintings and our songs.
Mhm.
Give me the next one. Uh, this is Pierisa de la Rupe. She is a native of Montecchio. She's a local Umbrian. She and her husband got married at 15 and 16, and they're still so cute.
Oh,
She her voice, she's the sexiest 85-year-old. Like, her voice is just like water. And she's an intuitive, and so she was quite young when she started having dreams, and the muse told her there's stuff up on the mountain that is under, it's under the jungle, like you can't find it, but one day it will be uncovered.
Mhm.
Years later, there's a fire on the mountain. The whole thing, all the brush, all the trees is gone, and all you see are the megaliths. Well, she goes wandering around in there. And of course, that muse starts talking to her. So give me the next one.
oh, sorry.
Yeah. So this
There we
is this is this is the trono della strega. This is the witch's throne. And so here you go. The next one. This is the position. It's
go.
carved
Oh,
into the
wow.
stone. You can't do anything else. You see that, and you're like, oh, of course. Right? So what are we doing? Well, she and her husband had a few ideas of what to do. They were young.
Oh, wow.
Right? If you go there, she will take you on a walk. You can go see these things. She's
Mm.
from there. She's part of the earth, of this place. Give me the next one.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's very like some of the birthing rocks that we have here in Australia from the
And
Indigenous
so,
tradition. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And there's a few of them.
Mhm.
And so the next one, there it
Yeah,
is, empty. It's so
some of them
obvious, right?
some of them
And
in
here.
Australia, they reckon have just been worn away by the woman's body. So many women
Yeah.
have given birth there. It's just
Right.
worn in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then
yeah.
there are all these yonis, and it's like Yoni Park. You wander around, and there are all these slaves.
Mm.
Nothing but slits and caves and holes in this whole park,
Oh,
and
wow.
so you go there and you fertilize it. You put your prayer in. People put sweets and coins and cloth and the rock. It takes it. So give
Oh,
me the
that's
next
beautiful.
one. Yeah. There you go. El mazo de la fertilidad, the rock of fertility.
Oh, wow.
And then she's written a bunch of books, but they're stories. And they're stories about her dreams. And this one's called The Sybil. And the next one is I can't read it from here. Anyway, another one
Udina
about
la
a
Strega
witch.
Rosa.
Yeah. And the next one. And that's another one of her books.
Il Canto del Signo
Signo
Etrusco.
Etruscan. Yeah, the song of something, the Etruscans. Sorry, the
The
song of,
swan. Yeah.
yeah,
And then what's this one?
obscura
On the
cos.
other side of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then that's her studio. So she does all the cover art herself. She's 85 years old.
Beautiful.
She's been doing this all her life. And people find her. A group
Wow.
came from the Ukraine because they had been told to go to that rock to have visions, and they all had their turn on the rock. And then they started crying, and she said, "What is it?" And they all saw the same thing, that they had needed to go home and pack their bags. And they all got out in time.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is such an incredible story. Wow.
Yeah. And she claims no powers. She says, "I'm not a shaman. I'm not a priest. I don't know anything. I just take you to the rock and you have your own experience."
Oh man. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Did you go?
I haven't been yet.
Mm.
So here's the next one. This nut, this nut goes, I believe that his dog is the reincarnation of an Etruscan priest, because this guy follows his dog around and goes tromping around in the woods and finds shit. He finds shit that archaeologists have never found. And he has videos of himself on YouTube and he's tromping around through the woods, and then he's like, "Oh my God." And you come upon this thing, and they're all over that. You can't swing a sacrificial animal in Italy without running up against another megalithic temple. And the ones that he's found that are in Tuscany, Umbria, where he's from, they're all the same. They're a big rock that is a natural formation, like a volcano spit it out, right? Then he'll go
Mm.
up to it and he starts rubbing on it with his hands. See, he takes the moss off and there's steps. You got to know what you're looking for. There's steps. And so you go on the steps and you go around the steps and you're on top of this big rock now. What's going to be on top? Two bathtubs. One's got a drain going into the other one, and the other one's got a drain going down. We don't know where, because we don't even have a tool to find out how that perfectly formed tube is going straight down into the rock. They're all carved out of solid rock, but they have plumbing. See?
Oh wow.
Yeah, give me the next one. You're traveling through the woods, and here's this. There's just, it's all over the place, right? And here's the next one.
Well, that's the thing. From what I've read, is that the Catholic Church has not allowed much archaeology to be done at all, and
Oh
it's
no,
just
they
been,
totally forbid it. Yeah.
yeah, they don't let
And then
any
they
any.
bring in some guy to say that it's medieval.
Yeah, pretty
And if
much.
they dig it up, and if it's Roman, they restore it. And if it's Etruscan, in many cases, they will rebury it to protect it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So here's another one. You go in there, and it's a round room carved out of the solid rock, and they're all over the place. Give me another one. Here, this out in the middle of nowhere, giant cube. Giant cube, and there's the dog. See, the dog brings him right to it. Huh.
That's awesome.
And the next one. Here's a couple of bathtubs. Sometimes they're slim like that. Sometimes they're like triangle with a head shape, and sometimes they're nice wide bathtubs. And they're draining into what is always below is a cave that is a round structure, and it's got benches, and you're dreaming in there. And it's got little, like, you can hear the water trickling by. The hole in the bathtub is then going into like these rivulets along the walls, and they're all the
Oh, wow.
same. And there's just hundreds and hundreds
Mm.
of them.
Yeah, every ancient tradition before you did ritual, you had to be purified.
Yeah, it's
So
all about the water. Yeah.
all about the purification. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
And then
that's
the
something that
next
we
one.
see with all these divinate, a lot has been made about these sulfur, vents, and a lot has been made about trying to, and certainly is an aspect, but the water seems to be the most recurring theme for
Yeah.
all of these Sibyllian sort of
And for all
prophets.
we know, these are all by natural springs that will
Right.
feed into the plumbing structure here. So yeah, Luca Zampi. His dog's name is Bagino. His YouTube channel is Lost in the Past, and this is what he does. Now here is an altar structure. All of them have an altar structure. They all have a little ring where you tie the animal up, and then they have a sink, and then the plumbing leads the blood into two separate bowls. They are doing something very specific here 5,000 years ago.
Oh wow.
And the next one, it just gets weirder and weirder, right? So here's that giant cube. And you're
Mm.
just jumping through the woods, and there it is. There's nothing else around it. Go to the next one. And then
Here's
there,
the new one.
yeah, and they're carved into the rock. And then up there, there's more bowls carved into the stone. And then the next one, yeah. So underneath of the bathtubs, there's these round rooms, and then they have other little round rooms or little square shelves to lie down in. And so the dreaming is happening underneath the bathtubs.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then the next one. Yeah, and this is these rivulets carved in. So you're running though, you're doing something with the water, and then you're diverting the water somewhere else.
Mm.
And the next one,
Oh wow.
right. Yeah, these archways. And so the inside is tunnels, and sometimes they connect back to the other door. Sometimes they go a right angle somewhere else, and you exit like off a cliff. Or these are initiatory caves. And then the
Hmm.
next one. Yeah, some of them are calendars. So this one, see that little slit in the solstice, the light comes through there. There's a beam that bisects the hypogeum.
Oh
And
wow.
then the next one, yeah, these little stairs going up. Yeah, it's all Swiss cheese in this tufa. See what I mean?
Oh wow. It really reminds me of when I was in India. I got to visit some of these old monasteries and cave systems where they
Mhm.
carve them out like this, and they do
Mhm.
it over hundreds and hundreds of years, right? It's just
Yeah.
wild.
And then so this is a columbarium, but there's too many of them and they're in weird places. So there is a theory that this is an amplifier.
Mm.
The band is playing in there and it's echoing off the other rock faces in a way that the initiate at the bottom of the gorge is having the experience.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sound magic. That's cool.
Yeah. And then the next one. Okay. If
All
you're
killers.
lucky too, you run into these weird carvings. So this is like this toad character that is the guardian of the underworld in the Etruscan uh
That's beautiful.
cosmology. Yeah.
And
And he's
people are
right on
still
a
leaving him
river.
offerings.
Yeah, when the
Yeah,
river's
yeah.
full, he's underwater.
Yeah. All Welsh culture is based on toad magic. Yeah, every good witch in Welsh culture has to have a pet toad. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
And
yeah.
the next one, yeah, see that slash there? That's where the water's running down.
Mm.
Yeah, it's running
Wow.
down and then behind, yeah. And then inside again, round room for meditating, bathtubs on the top. And the
Mhm.
next one in here's another, you go up the stairs, see, and then there's the pools. So one thing that remains in Italian traditional witchcraft is l'acqua di San Giovanni. You do this on the solstice in June. You take a tub, you fill it with water, and then you put a bunch of wildflowers in there, whatever smells good. Use any flowers or walnut leaves, citrus leaves, and you put it in there and you leave it overnight. And then everybody dumps it on themselves. You get a cup, and first thing in the morning, you take a shower in this cold water that is so fragrant with the flowers. So we think they're probably doing something like that up there with the bathtub, some kind of medicinal bath.
Oh,
And so
wow.
the next one, and so yeah, there's
That's
a little face carving on that one.
beautiful.
And sometimes there are, words in Etruscan language that we don't even know anymore. The next one now, yeah. So this you can see, I mean, it's obvious, right? Big cat face. And then there's the next shot is from further away.
Those faces are all over the walls of the Hellfire Club too. Hundreds
Ah,
and hundreds of them.
ah,
When I was in Iceland, the Icelandic people, anytime they see these kind of faces, generally they signal them out and they call them, you know, these are fairy or troll spots, and
yeah,
people will go leave offerings.
yeah.
Yeah, really, really wild, beautiful.
And I mean, Luca tells the story. He's tired. He's been hiking for hours, and then he sees a wolf walk by, and the wolf just looks at him and then goes somewhere. He follows that wolf. That's how you find this stuff.
Right.
You can be looking with your metal detector till the cows come home. The animals are gonna start talking to you if you're out there long enough, and they'll show you where it is.
Yeah, Zen navigation, that's what we call it.
Yeah, man.
Follow something that looks like it knows where it's going.
Give me
It's the
the
woods.
next one.
They'll show you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm almost to the end. This is the Via Cava that Selma studied in her books, and Luca Zampi counts them and studies them, and they're all over, and they're always near these bathtubs and near these round meditation rooms, and they're called tombs. They're not tombs. I mean, you can't bury a body in a bathtub. It's too
No.
shallow. They're not tombs, and so he charts them and just how many of them there are all over central Italy, and he's found them in southern Italy, northern Italy, Portugal, all the way to Anatolia.
Oh
And
wow, all the
it's
way
some
into
fucker with
Anatolia.
a hammer and chisel, and you don't need to do it. It's not going anywhere strange. You could walk around that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
the
that's
next
wild.
one, let's see that. There we go. There's another hypogeum. The round rooms, and the
Mm-hmm.
next one. They're just all over. Okay, this one he found. He found this. This is a Demeter cube, and you have to go down into a cave to even find it. What the heck is that? It's another one of these giant cubes, and he's convinced it's a temple for Demeter.
Oh, that's wild.
Massive. Yeah. Okay, here's the last one. This is you can't go here. See, they've blocked it off. A rock fell and oh, it's not safe. But this is a fantastic Etruscan hypogeum. Let's see the next one. You go in, and this is a fetish, an Etruscan fetish of a uterus. So they had knowledge of the ridges of the uterus, right? That just that we think it's modern medical knowledge, but they're singing to these ridges, okay? And go to the next one. The whole room is this. Huh?
Oh wow.
Yeah, man. You see the little man inside? That's how big it is.
It's a giant cave womb.
It's
That's
a
brilliant.
bathtub, and it's got water dripping all along the sides in this spiral formation with a hole in the ceiling where the moonlight and sunlight comes in. And so so that's what it looks like now. And then the next one is what it that's the ceiling. So it's
Right.
a
So
square
where the
and a
water comes
circle,
in.
right? It's a circle hole on the top and it's a square hole and then the next one, that's how it must have looked then.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's a composite
I
AI
don't
kind of thing.
I don't know if you have it over there, but in Australia we have a slang term for the female clitoris, and we
Mm.
call it the little man in the boat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, and that's just what it looks like, the little man in the boat.
So that's
Yeah.
the thing. You want to pass this Italian witchcraft, you grab your hammer and your chisel and you chip yourself in the tufa. It's very soft. Yeah. It's really not that sing of a job. Build
Mm.
yourself a little womb and take a bath in there and then see what happens when you put a bunch of plants in there, and then when you get the sunlight and the moonlight activating your magical plants in your bath in your little womb, then you're going to start hearing voices, and what they tell you will be fabulous. There will be no beginning, no middle, and no end to it all. And that's
It's
that.
so wild. What a brilliant presentation. Thank you for so many amazing pictures, and
Thank
for
you,
showing
dude.
us some of these scholars. I'm gonna have to go do some digging now.
Yeah.
Brilliant work. What did you think,
Yeah.
Shay?
Oh, well, just at the end there, where you're talking about how these things are discovered and then a rock falls over the entrance and it's dangerous. We have a situation, and I've got a video on YouTube somewhere of me going to a place in just outside of Sydney called the Gosford Hieroglyphs. And it's 20-foot tall walls carved into the sandstone with Cheops period hieroglyphs. Right. And yeah, we know it's a couple of 100 years old, but the official story is that it's a hoax. Somebody did it as a hoax. I mean, this would have taken ages. But at the bottom, there is a perfectly square cave. And I actually go down into this cave. It's got, and they keep putting a rock over it so people can not go down there and see that this tomb-like structure is at the bottom of these hieroglyphs. And I keep saying, well, it's full of sand. Let's vacuum out all the sand and see what's actually at the bottom. No. National Parks comes and keeps putting rocks over it, so you can't get down into the tomb area.
Well, that's the thing, and that kind of obfuscation, it makes everybody think there must be something really wonderful down there.
Yeah, and it
Right, it only
just
makes
goes.
it worse,
If they
It
would
just
just
goes.
ignore it, we might
Yeah.
not even notice.
I mean,
It's
we
like
know that there was eucalyptus oil in Egyptian mummification program. So, it makes sense that we would find some Egyptian artifacts here in Australia because there is eucalyptus oil in the mummification process. But
it's
no,
just,
that goes against the official narrative, and you've got to maintain that official narrative
Well,
and put rocks over it.
one of the guests on Luca's show said something that I'm still thinking about. Most
Mm,
Italians, they're sea people.
mm,
And he says, perché quando vedono il mare vedono un muro. When they see the sea, they see a wall.
mm,
When I see the sea, I see a highway. And it's
mm.
obvious to me that there was communication for the continent. Of course there was. You can't look at the sea without seeing a highway if that's your mentality. But these guys, they're thinking no, because they look at the sea and they see a wall.
right, right.
Mhm, mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow, wow. So that was a wild presentation. So what I
Mm,
want to ask you guys both, since you both, you both have interesting backgrounds, right?
mm,
Where, um, Shay is a committed follower, a Dianic witch. You grew up in a Dianic background, left it, and have come back sort of around in
Yeah,
your
man.
life now. So,
Well, now I'm
you
going to be paying rent to Artemis every month just in case I don't get it.
right?
I love it. Love it. Yeah.
So like, how do
Yeah.
you reconcile, so what's your perspective? We'll start with you. What's your perspective on this whole Dianic tradition? And yeah, what's your takeaway?
Mine.
Whoever
Yeah.
Um,
wants to go.
okay. Well, look, I think Diana isn't like to isolate any aspect of nature without the rest of the aspects of nature. It's not right. Like we
Mm,
can certainly have a vow to a particular goddess or god or aspect of nature, and we can work with that. But what I have found is that life will naturally lead you into a bigger picture. Right.
mm.
So, Diana, I made a vow to her. She comes with me wherever I go. She's currently sitting on my front lawn right now, looking over my new property. And she's on my altar, but my altar has a pantheon there. I have a whole lot of deities that I work with. And to isolate just one side of my divinity and one side of my nature, I, and I think that's probably why Leslie stepped back. I mean, I'm making an assumption, but why she stepped back because there's more to the picture than just
It's
Diane.
because I
Yeah.
felt, well, see, I was privileged to have feminist parents. And so
Mhm,
I had the luxury of being non binary before it was a thing.
mm,
And I wasn't going to do what I saw as a reactionary, reacting to God being male. And, oh no, God is female. And I was
mm,
like, look,
mhm,
no, neither, and both. And what are you guys talking about? And no,
Right.
I
I
don't.
remember
I
you
don't
told me
want to
that.
mess. I thought menstrual blood magic was gross, and I didn't
Right.
want to do it, and you know,
That,
and
that
they were
story
like,
hit me so
"Oh,
hard. People should go back and we did 3 interviews together. You can hear all Leslie's story, but that was such a wild thing because, right, for someone who's been brought up in the patriarchal household and has been disconnected from their femininity,
it's
doing these
liberating."
kind of red tent rituals is
Yeah, they
liberating.
were
Women are
all about it. They were
reclaiming.
having the best time ever, and
But
me
you're
and my
like,
sister
no,
were
that's
like,
great.
"Ew."
Mm. Yeah. Makes your tomatoes grow really well. I know that.
You know, if you're not disconnected from your body and from your gender, you
Mm.
don't need to necessarily do that healing. That wasn't for you, right?
Well,
Yeah.
no, they were loving it to their last day, menstruating on the moss and making paper out of it, and you know.
Mm.
Oh
Mm. Yeah,
Right.
I was raised strict Jehovah's Witness. So,
shit!
yeah. And, but weird stuff happened around me. I had, the doctors identified me as having way too many male hormones. What's that called? It's called, intersex,
Uh huh.
intersex.
Uh huh.
And these days, if I was diagnosed intersex, they would be scheduling me for a sex change and I would not have had my 2 children. But it did create an interesting situation in that I had terrible acne, like so bad people didn't want to look at my face. But I've always been a tomboy. I grew up very, very
I
strong.
was too. Yeah.
All my life because of my strength. I mean, I think I look feminine now, but
Yeah, you do.
people still go, "Are you a tranny?" And I go, "Well, how bad do you want to know?"
Oh,
You know?
people think that about me all the time, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, let's go to the
And
bathroom and check." Oh, wait,
yeah,
which
yeah.
bathroom?
And I was always drawn to these, like even as a Jehovah's Witness, I was drawn to stories of Atlanta, of these strong feminine females that seemed to transcend their gender. They were neither female nor male, and like they're there, and they're there in every culture,
Yeah,
where there are people that they can embody the feminine, but there's more to them than that as well.
yeah.
Right. And the strength of the film. I mean, like I'm 63, I'm just doing my stunt qualification, you know. So I've stayed strong, I've
Yeah.
stayed active. I'm a really active woman. And those days the only term for it was, oh, she's a tomboy,
Well,
she
and
doesn't
it's
quite.
interesting, there was a period where the intersex babies were taken off and assigned a gender. Nowadays, no.
I know,
Nowadays,
thank God.
nowadays
Yeah.
is much, much better, and there's
Mm,
choice and consent involved. But
mm,
I know people who that happened to, and
yeah.
then they
I
had
had
to
had my
find out later, and
yeah.
and mostly came back to the other gender.
Yeah. Well, after I had my first son, my skin calmed down. I was having a 21-day cycle. I didn't fit in with any of the Dianic because I didn't have a 28-day cycle. I had a 21-day cycle. I would
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
period every 3 weeks, and I'd bleed for 7 days. And
yeah.
apparently
Well,
this is because I had
apparently
too
the
many
the
male
moon on
hormones.
your planet has a
Yeah,
has a 3 week
yeah,
cycle.
yeah. That's right. So you gotta work with what you got.
Yeah, yeah,
Gotta work.
Well,
Gotta work.
exactly. And so this is an example of why maybe the Dianic moon magic wouldn't have worked for you as a teenager,
Oh,
right.
no. And
right?
even later in life, I was looking at this going, there's more to it than this.
Yeah.
I'm more inclusive than this. And I'd look at the Dianic tradition, and they take a section of the stories about Diana, even. They don't take the whole mythos. And
And I've
she's
been
a
looking
very
at
complex goddess.
like the
Very
whole
complex.
thing of taking Hecate and Selene and Diana as a
Mm-hmm.
triad.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think that develops? I mean, each of them, for one thing, Hecate isn't born as a lunar goddess, and
Mm-hmm.
neither is Artemis really, the goddess
Mm-hmm.
of magic and the goddess of haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Selene was the moon, but she's the personification of the moon. And so when did this, because we have very old statues of tripartite goddess, this isn't a
Yeah.
Graves idea.
Yeah.
The tripartite goddess, I
Yeah.
mean, as far as I know, goes back to the Celtic Tremadre. This
Yeah.
is very old.
Yeah.
But But this peculiar moon magic that is practiced today
Mm.
with Hecate, Diana, and Selene, when did that happen? How did
Well,
that
Oh well,
develop?
we can actually trace that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's there is a history to that. I mean,
Gotcha.
Hecate was first. She was triple faced because she was the goddess of the crossroads, right?
Hmm.
And she was granted dominion over earth, sea, and underworld, right? So she had dominion in the three realms, and
Right.
that's what her three faces were about. But later, she evolved into becoming the dark moon, and once she was the dark moon and she had two hounds, they were like, oh, well, she's like Diana, you know, and she does have a history of evolution as a
Mm.
goddess where she starts as this. And then in the later neoclassical Greek period, she actually ends up becoming associated with the dark phase of the moon and Diana. So we have a
And
history
how
of that.
does her
That's very
name
traceable.
become trivia? Because to me, that's the
so
opposite of
we
her.
gotta yeah, so we gotta unpack this a bit. So in the earliest references that we have to Hecate, the very earliest one comes from Hesiod's Theogony, and it is
Mm.
basically what Shay is saying. So there seems to be also an equating with her with Hestia because she takes on Hestia's epithets. So
Mm,
Hecate is called the first and the last, and the one who moves through the three realms. And in the
mm,
Greek, right, the three worlds would be the underworld, which is
mm,
where we all find ourselves now, the
mm,
realms of water, and the realms of the air or
mm,
Olympus, and she
mm,
gets to, and you see this like in the hymns to Selene that I love to read, where they say she crosses the chasm and she can go to Olympus. So that's a big essential thing to her. But we also have all of this, like if you look at, there's this really amazing book by Elne Cornatus, and this is the Greek theology. And so it's a later book, but he's trying to specifically try to understand it from a theological perspective. And
mm,
he talks about Hecate and Apollo and Artemis. And he goes,
mm,
we have Apollo as the hectabolo, the one
mm,
who's throwing all of this. And then you have Artemis as Hecate, where often that appears as her epithet. And so it has to do with this light throwing power. And so what I have seemed to see when we get into a lot of this Hecate magic and this tripartite magic is
mm,
why I really like, we talked about this with Dr. Carla. We really see this in the Egyptian magic. So if you go
mm,
back to the goddess Neith, Neith,
mm,
in my opinion, I mean, there's also a lot going on in the Sumerian. I'm not as familiar with the Sumerian, but with Neith, what you get is she's an uncreated creatrix. So she's a virgin creator. This is the only other virgin creator goddess I can think of. She's the oldest of the Egyptian mother goddesses, predating even Mut. And what she says is she gives birth to light. Out of the great chaos that is Neith comes the light,
mm,
is the sun, Ra. And this is the
mm,
earliest birth myth we have, but it's not a literal birth. It's like the idea is she is this cosmic thing before even physical birth, because you're
mm,
talking about primordial elemental
Right.
powers. So Neith
mm,
is this chaos goddess, right? In the
mm,
same way that Hecate is this traverses the chaos. She's the hidden light in the chaos.
mm.
And
And
you
it's
also get
exactly
this
the Aradia myth as well, isn't it? Exactly.
exactly, exactly
Hmm.
as Leland retells it.
Mm,
But what we also see with Neith, where Neith stands apart, is interesting, is she's also this wilderness goddess, the lord of wild animals, and she has the bow and arrow. And they talk about her as this beetle goddess. She's the bee because with the Nile, when the Nile floods would go, the beetles would always be the first to come before the floods because they have their cycle of birth and death with the floods. So they saw this birth of the beetle where there's no water as this coming out of nothing, out of the we can't out of the uncomprehensible comes life, right? And so
mm,
that's the secret of this Artemis magic. She gives birth, but it's not through sex, right?
Right.
Just as we see with Tacita in the Roman tradition, the Roman Hecate, the Amuta, right?
mm,
What do
She
you
gives
call that? Parthenogenesis?
parthenogenesis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Doug Carla has a whole chapter about Artemis as a
exactly.
parthenogenesis. Yeah.
Is a parthenogenesis, and we see that maintained within the Catholic tradition with the great Virgin Mary, right?
mm, mhm,
Virgin Mary is just they're reshaping this ancient idea of this uncreated mother goddess, this war goddess, this chaos goddess that's like from ancient Libya, right? And this takes us right into the Ammon stuff, because the companion of Neith is a moon. And together they manifest Ra. This is your first Trinity, your first Holy Trinity, right? And we see in LA Cornatus, the first Trinity is Hecate, Apollo, and Artemis. And we see that in Aradia. Hecate, Apollo, well, they say Diana, Artemis, and Apollo, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea.
And
And
Leslie's
how-
question about the trivia is that it's not trivia as we understand the word trivia. It was a triviata. It was a triple story. Triviata. Yeah. So it's not trivia as in small, but she had a triple story. She had 3 parts to a story.
Ways.
Triviata. Yeah. 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 Cool. So it's amazing. Yeah, but no, it's interesting when you trace the evolution of these gods and goddesses, how they start, where they start in one culture, come into another culture, and it's what we're saying before about belief systems. They evolve, they take on the meaning not only for that group of people, but the 3 of us would have a separate experience of Diana. We'd all have a separate, even though we've had similar
We're
experiences.
having one now. Yeah.
We have an individual experience that you guys can't share. You know, as much as I want to share it with you, you never will be able to, because it was personal to me and it was personal to you and it's personal to you. So, you know,
that's the essence of the Savior, like having a personal relationship with Jesus. You know, the Savior is by definition is a personal relationship. Yeah.
yeah, we
Right?
can have
I mean,
personal relationship. Go on, go
Sorry.
ahead. Go
There's
ahead.
this
Go
really
ahead.
awesome book I got. It's called Underworld. It's by this secret society called the Sepulcher Society. And they're trying to teach people how to contact various underworld deities. And one of the things they say contacting a deity is like traveling to a country. It's like we could all go visit Italy, but we're all going to have radical different experiences. Depends on the time, depends on where you go, depends on who you meet, what you do, right? This is the thing. It's all Italy, and there would be many similarities, but there would also be very many unique distinctions.
But like traveling too, you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. You're aware that you're out of your element. You're a little bit scared, and you kind of want to laugh also, and you know.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it, you know. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and many times meditation's called the journey to the far country in the classic texts. You know, going on that journey to the far country, it's through meditation. Into the realm where only the gods can go, through the meditation. The journey to the far country. It's the gift of Hermes. Only Hermes and Hecate could go to all places in Greek myth. Yeah. So so if you want to go into these far places, you had to have one or the other as a patron. So they would take you through. They open and Hecate has the keys to open the doors and let you through, so you can come back again. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? She controls Cerberus, right? Cerberus is her child, basically.
And you know, there were many more animals. So this now what we say dog because that's the only one left. But there was a load of jackals and wolverines and what do you call them? Jagarundis. There were all these in between animals that I believe also are still out in the mountains in Appalachia because you hear certain sounds that you're like, that's not like any animal I know. So I think there's still plenty of animals that we don't know are there that are quite wily. But there's a theory that the Cerberus dog was a creature that is now extinct, like Anubis is a sort of a jackal that we don't have anymore.
Right. There could be these Paleolithic animals that got wiped out
And
or
that
got
weird Egyptian, it
bred
looks
out.
like an anteater or something.
Right.
We don't know. We don't have them no more.
We don't have them anymore.
Or it could just be a Saturnian duck.
Right. Restore that.
But yeah, I had when I first got my statue of Diana, I had 2 big black Great Danes, and one was called Cerberus and one was called Mountain. So, and they, when we brought the statue home and put it down, Serby went and sat right beside her, and then Mountain came and sat there as well. So nobody
But then
told them, they just sat
the other big
there.
thing I wanted to ask you both about, and this is kind of a continuation from Shay and I's previous episode in
Yeah.
our conversation. So one of the big things that I see with all of this women's magic, and this has been a big thing on my mind lately, is its connection to black magic. You know, seduction is black magic. And this seems to be also a dividing line between the Dianic and the Aphrodite traditions, right? Diana does not participate in seduction magic, right?
Yeah.
It's not so much even that it's not, that's really where the virginity seems to come in, is that she doesn't engage in that kind of power, but Aphrodite does, you
Well,
know?
she can't. She can't
Oh,
relate. She can't
oh,
relate. It's there. There is a something of a rebellion against it too, as a tomboy, which
Yeah,
she is. She's a butch, but also she can't relate,
mm.
and she couldn't do it if she tried. You know.
Oh, well,
right.
Endymion really wasn't very cooperative at the start, but she went and seduced him. And remember, she's not a virgin. She had 52 children to Endymion. So, yeah. So, but he was
Yeah,
not
but
a
I don't think
willing.
it's seductive magic that what I'm talking about though is when we're getting
Yeah,
into that seductive magic is the
yeah,
power of Aphrodite to bend the will of anyone.
oh,
And that's
oh,
yeah.
where things are getting,
butch women have sex, by the
yeah.
way,
No,
and
no,
are
for sure.
very seductive, and
But you
for
know,
Yeah.
but
people
there's
who like
okay,
that
but
kind
the
of thing.
seductive magic though, what we're talking about is crossing certain
Mm.
lines, right?
Yeah.
You know,
And it's
and I don't
like,
think
it's
it's
definitely,
necessarily
For
evil.
some people, it
It-
comes naturally, and you see them.
yeah.
They're
right.
hamming it up, and they're woo, and it's just they're in their element. And other people, they're not, and their element is something different, and they're maybe athletic or some
Oh.
other channeling of the heat.
We're
Hmm.
talking, you know what Aphrodite's symbol is, yeah? The white dove.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I have a white dove trying to get in my door right now. So anyway, uh, okay, it's a huge white dove. Um, but I deal a lot, because I do counseling, I do readings with people, and love follows. And I think this is the thing we miss with myth is myth shows you that love does follow a pattern, right?
Hmm.
I don't think, I think people forget that Artemis Diana wasn't against love and sex. What she
Mhm.
was, if you follow me, you vow your chastity to me. So they could have a family and everything before, but once you went with her, whether you were male or female, because she also had male followers, and we know what happened with oh, what was his name? We were discussing him last week, where his stepmother seduced him because of Aphrodite's
Oh,
curse.
Hippolytus.
Hippolytus, yeah. He was a follower of Diana, and he had vowed his chastity to her. So it was a devotion. It was like you will give, be careful of the promises you make to the gods in a circle. Right? If you promise you're not ever going to have sex again because all that energy is going to the god. I don't think it's so much about not loving, it's about the breaking of the vow.
But
That
Hmm.
was
depending
that was the
depending
vow.
on your vow,
Mm,
it could just be a vow that you're not going to share housing.
mm.
Because
Any vow.
virgin can just mean someone who lives by themselves.
Yeah.
And
It
so
what
and so your householding energy is going to the monastery,
I
right?
think a lot of this has to do with, okay, so a lot of this has to do with the alchemical tradition, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've cut out the feminine side of this
mm,
journey. You see it
That
reflected in the
there's yeah,
story
that
of Medea.
lesbians have sex. It's not that they don't, and so but it's
No,
talked about as if they don't. You see what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
she's living with another female. Oh, they're aunties, they're sisters, they're virgins, they're
No, but I
celibate.
mean, yeah, for sure. That's clearly there. That's clearly there for sure. And there's obviously this whole lesbian aspect to the
Yeah.
whole Artemis and the Artemis tradition and these virgin traditions. But there's also this empowerment, and there's this. So one of the things that I love about Christine de Pizan is she breaks it down for us, where she talks about how she had to become a man in the
mm,
fullest sense of the word
Yeah.
in order to become a powerful philosopher, in order to become the witch, in order to become the magus. Tiresias, he has to become a woman. In order to
Yeah.
become a magus, he has to become a woman.
And the
And
majority of Aphrodite's priestesses were tranny. You know,
yeah,
they were
right,
trans. And I say
right.
tranny with the dearest affection because I've got some
Yeah,
very close friends,
yeah,
right?
We
because,
used
yeah,
we used
But
to be
they
able to say
were,
that.
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah, they
they
were
were,
for
yeah,
sure.
because they knew the aspect of the female that even the female didn't understand because they had to
More girl
embrace
than
it.
girls are. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What we got to talk about here is there's this clear magical journey that people need to go to. It depends on, of
Mm,
course, where you are on this sort of spectrum, and we all need to incorporate and come to this middle path. But
mm,
there is a thing where the feminine needs to shed this dependence upon the other and needs to come into self-empowerment and become a king. That's what the feminine needs to do in order to rise. Or the
mm,
masculine needs to learn to wait and not dominate, needs to learn to not
Right.
take, needs to learn to
Right.
respect and love and submit to the other. The
mm.
masculine must submit, the feminine must come into power, must
The
stand up for
masculine
herself.
must sublimate, the
Yeah,
feminine must ejaculate.
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
All
And
right.
when you
But
see that flipping is when you can rise, or you like we see in the Addis story. How does Addis ascend? He abandons his obsession with the nymphs and his decrepitude. He castrates himself, but this is seen as rejection of what? Impurity and virility, and a return to purity, an embodying of the feminine. He literally becomes Cybele. And this is
mm,
seen as a transcendence. But I'm saying that we see the exact same thing in the Medea story, right?
mm,
Medea becomes the king, she builds the city,
Mm.
and it ends with her setting herself ablaze to return to the sky, to become the divine, you
mm.
know? So it's the same exact story, and it's the
Okay. So
same kind of empowerment.
Okay, so what I was trying to say before, we'll go back to your original question. What is evil
Ah,
about this love magic? Right. So I
ah.
think that the myth is there of all of these stories of love to show us that love follows a pattern. Like just this weekend, I was helping somebody with a tragic love story, and we were going, the next stage is this, right? We can see the stages. Very easy, especially when it's not involving you. But we're going, okay, so this is going to happen next. If you push him back, he will follow you. And then it will get weird, right? He will start to
Yeah.
become abusive, right? Because he hasn't, he's wanting you to chase him. So you step back, he's not getting the energy anymore. But we see this in myth. We see these stories. It's trying to teach us what the pattern of love is. This is a cycle, this is a trick. Aphrodite is the force of sex in nature that makes nature continue. And it can be misused, or you can rise to the divine, realize this is a cycle in nature and that you can be in control of it. If you want to be the victim of love, there's a heap of love songs out there, go and sing them. If you want to be in control of love, you can. So even if somebody has put a love spell on you, are you going to be the victim of that? That there's many happy stories that come out of somebody being in a love spell
Yeah,
in myth.
that's true. That's
All
true,
right.
right? If it's what
But
you want, is it necessary? But this is the problem, is that so much of this magic revolves around usurping of someone's will, right?
well,
Breaking of
or
consent.
flip that. It
I
rises
don't know
out
about
of the
that.
somebody else not wanting to take responsibility for
It
their
makes
own
for
love.
good stories, but that's
No,
Mm.
not
but you're
fundamentally
either
what any of this is about as far as
you're either
magic
the
or
victim
elements and
or
manipulating
the
each other
or the
is
divine.
already
You're
off
either
track.
victim or divine. So
Mhm.
if you want to be the victim of love, you can do that. If you want to be the goddess of love or the divine bringer of love, right? Or the Cupid or you can do that. So, but it's about taking that energy of love, whichever way it's given to you. If it's given to you because somebody else is throwing a spell at you, or Aphrodite is, playing with you, you take that. There's plenty of stories where Aphrodite gets beaten at her own game. Right. So, and you've got to do this by acknowledging she's really powerful and embodying that God power yourself. Right. I think the tragedy of love is that when a woman is in the throes of her hormones, she can't see the difference between chemistry and the hard work of love.
Well,
Right?
I mean, but let's take it away from just the feminine here, because
Well, wait,
that
okay, so
Aphrodite.
love magic. Have you ever tried to do it? Has
Of
it?
course. Show me a
Yeah.
person that hasn't. Show
It
me a person
has
that hasn't.
unpredictable results
Well, no, this is
100% of the
no.
time. So
This
it
is what I'm
almost never has the exact effect that you're
No,
trying
no.
to make
This
it
is what
have.
I'm
but
saying. It's got very predictable results. All right, but just that we want it to be. This is what romance means. It's a French word saying story. We want somebody to be other than what they are, and we fall in love with this
Yes.
image and this ideal.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
right.
and but if you follow, do love magic, you do whatever, it's going to follow this pattern. This pattern is in all the stories and myths. You
And
just
no
got to
matter what magic you do, it's not going to behave
Well,
any
it's
differently.
it's complicated though, because the love magic does work, and it does lead to empowerment. It also does lead to explosion. And people are often willing to risk it's a reward risk thing. And we got to acknowledge, right? So what I'm witnessing right now, we're seeing an unveiling in our public sphere, where the decrepitude of a certain group of people is being exposed, that's always existed across history but is often veiled, right? Like, I look at Epstein, and Epstein is Jason. He's doing seduction magic. He seduced the world. He seduced all the most wealthy people. He seduced all of these innocents, and it's all for this self-aggrandizing power. Now he blows himself up, and it's all getting revealed, but that's clearly what's happening. And
yeah.
it's like, it's wild to see. It's wild. And the Greek tradition
And
tells
they're
you that
doing
when
and they're
Jason does
doing
that love magic, the good is
systemic
evil.
patriarchal juju on
Yeah,
purpose to
I
take
can't.
power away from something innocent and
yeah,
good and garner it for themselves. This
yeah.
is
The,
this is
the doves are just going berserk at the moment. We are onto
yeah.
something here, guys. I'm
And this is
telling
what
you.
happens when you try to
I'm
keep
gonna.
Aphrodite out of the equation, is
Yeah,
then
I'll
you get
turn it around. Maybe we can
obsessed.
see. Can you see them
Jesus.
over there? Can you
Yeah,
see
They
them?
they're
want
freaking
it.
out.
Tr-
They
they're
want
just
it.
going berserk. Like
Yeah.
there's three of them trying to get in here. Like
Now,
still, there's
I did counter juju at the Bohemian Grove, and I can tell you
yeah,
what they do. They do a perverted version of Egyptian magic with no Isis, no Hathor, and no Mot.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, but
Well,
Epstein
I to
was
me, like,
he
one of the
he
biggest things that I read that really.
yeah, Epstein is a black magician.
Go
He's
ahead.
manipulating people with sex and love. He's a spy.
Yeah.
He wanted leverage over those people for whoever
Yeah,
his controllers are, and he's using sex and love to do that. You know, and once he's got that leverage, they're
yeah.
in his
Pure
control. So
Aphrodite
they are
magic.
the victim. They've gone into the victimhood again, rather
Well, and
than
it's
going
the
to the
human
divine
sacrifice,
side. Yeah.
all the way to the human sacrifice element. And this is something, if this is what they used to say about the Marionettes, it's what they used to say about the witches. Is that you guys were talking about it last week? Anytime you want to inflame the public, you tell them that they're harming babies,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but that's
and
what
so,
exactly they're doing,
but then they are doing that. Yeah,
Mhm.
right? Then they are doing that to
yeah.
empower themselves and to break free. It's that George Bataille black magic stuff, that accursed share, where once you have everything, you're bound into this destructive mode.
The
You know,
monarchy has never been any different. I don't know
no,
why people
it's
is
always
people are
gone like.
having a real identity crisis. They're having a
Mhm.
real moral crisis, existential crisis. I see more crisis of faith out there in the last couple weeks than ever before. And I'm saying, what do you think these kings were ever there to do?
Well, this is what we need to talk about. And I've been
Get
such
rid of
a
them.
polite person and have tried to be nice, but it's like, this I look at the current moment we're in, and this is the result of the Abrahamic religions. This is where that nationalistic kind of
Where the road goes, yeah.
absolute monotheism leads you. It was inevitable that we would get here.
And fortunately, our physical bodies are wired still. for this other thing. And all you have to do is go out into nature by yourself and sit past that moment where you feel uncomfortable, past the moment where you're like, this is stupid, the weather's going to change. Shut your brain off and sit there. And pretty soon, the rocks will start to talk to you and the water will start to talk to you. You are wired for this. You are not wired for that other stuff. That's why that other stuff always felt so alien and weird. It's because it is.
Mm.
Yeah. It's demonic possession.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But with regard to going back to your original question again,
Mhm.
the Sappho wrote the most beautiful hymn to Aphrodite, and it finishes with a stanza that says, "Come to me now again, release me from my pain, and everything I long to feel, let me feel, and you be my ally."
Mm.
And I think it's about understanding that if we sink to victimhood, the gods will give us that. If
Absolutely.
not, we can get Aphrodite to be our ally. We can be divine like her. She can be on our side, whether it's Aphrodite, Aphrodisponde, Aphrodite, whether it's her, whether it's Diana. We want them to be our allies,
Yeah, man.
right? And we never ever want to be the victim of this. And I think that's why the doves are going crazy over there, or they've stopped now, is that we have to acknowledge them. I think that by giving them that, um, I can tell you definitely after seeing that little bit of augury, I'm definitely going to make a little offering to Aphrodite and make sure she's on my side.
Yeah.
Um, because you don't want to mucking with you and you don't want to fall to that victim side. You want to make sure that they are your ally. Right? And Sappho is just such a beautiful poet, and we've just lost so much of her work. But she had a university, right, equivalent of a university in ancient Greece about love, right? And she
Good.
cast love spells, and she became the victim, and she was strong with it as well. But we've got to make sure that we make these divine forces our allies, our friends, and I think we've shown that by the ancients how to do that. Here is the pattern. Don't fall to the victim. If you make them a promise, keep your promise because they'll be your friends and allies.
And
I think
any
there's been
element is only an element. And if we aggrandize it, it has negative effects. And if we suppress it, it has other negative effects. So that's the whole thing about being a witch is it life is not something that is happening to me. I am
Mm,
not pulled under by these waves. I
mm,
I have it a say.
mm,
right. Well, it all comes down, when I look at this, I keep seeing this idea that, love is such a profound thing. When we think again from the alchemical and the tarot tradition, it's the lover's path that takes you to the heights. Addis walked the lover's path. You can use that love to dominate and to be, decrepit in the earth, or you can use that love to imitate the highest muse and to walk your true path, to live your best life, to go forward into life and generation. And love is that force that allows and makes life beautiful, that empowers us all, right?
Yeah.
So I think the great satire is that they've made us think that it was the love magic that's the evil, but it's not the love magic that's the evil. It's the possession of the feminine. It's the usurping of that
Us.
power and imprisoning of that power.
It's
You
just
know,
really misinterpreting love as something that you can
Yeah.
extract or
you use
Yeah.
it to weaponize.
have.
Yeah,
You
that's
use
right.
it to possess others.
There's nothing wrong with electricity, but what are you using it for? It's the
Right.
intention of the
Yeah.
practitioner.
You
If
know,
their intention is not divine, if they're functioning from jealousy, spite, lack, or being a victim,
But
it's
don't
not,
don't
you're
you
going to
think
get the results of that. You're going to get the
don't you
results of
think
that.
it's really the one that is the hardest to be objective when you're in it, you know?
right. we need
Yeah,
to
but I
we need to call out the real evil, and like to me, what's the real evil? Anytime I look for the real evil, it's that which denigrates and reduces and imprisons the feminine. So if I look at the Greek tradition, it's Zeus. Zeus is the one who condemns Pandora, says that she's the ultimate evil, and curses man with her. That is such a lie, and it's such a stupid thing. And if we look at clouds, he's doing the Jason magic. Zeus stole Hera, has all this power because he possesses Hera. And he's done that power magic, right? This is the thing. We are all lorded over by these black magicians. This is a thing.
And it's funny
And
how
all of them
we
dominating
get all
heaven.
three, right? But it's almost like you have to choose between Hecate and Diana. Well, Selene is there too. Hera is there too. They are
Right,
these silent powers that don't get a lot of monologue and they don't get a lot of airplay, but there are whole people who spend their life in that vibration too. And I think
right.
the people who are stable, they don't get a lot, they don't get enough credit, you know. Both Diana and Aphrodite, you follow them around. They're full of drama. They got all kinds of stories. And Hera's just like, yawn, knock yourselves out, right?
Well,
And
Hera is that one who pushes,
But yeah,
right? He made
you got to,
Heracles a god, but Heracles had to suffer for it.
yeah. And you got to realize, like what you were saying before about Zeus, like I have a thing like from the labyrinth, you know, my kingdom is as great as yours. You have no power over me, right? You don't let the evil magicians have power over you, right? Sure, Zeus kidnapped Hera, but Hera wanted to be there. She never left. She was always trying to possess Zeus back, right? She was where it was you know, a codependent dysfunctional relationship. They liked it. All
but
right.
yeah,
And
they're
that,
well matched as far as power.
yeah, they are. All right.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a whole, we've got to understand that these Greek gods show us sides of ourselves.
Yes.
Everybody likes to be in control at
I
some point.
mean, Hera gets complicated though because she's been so satirized, and we have that earlier Samos version where she is a matriarch of her own without Zeus. And there's a clear abduction, a rape, and
Yeah.
imprisonment. And this comes out within the tradition explicitly within Clouds, right? What is the source of Zeus's power? That he did the Aphrodite magic to rape and bind Hera. And then what happens at the end of that story? The trusty friend does the same thing. He
Mm,
imprisons Hera, marries her, takes her, and now you just got a change of power, one patriarch to the other. Now, he may have been able to convince everyone again, he's doing the Aphrodite magic. What does the trusty friend do? He gets all the birds upset. He says, you guys shouldn't be working for the gods. You should work for me. He gets the Athenians upset. Don't pray to Zeus, pray to me. And then he steals Hera. He just replaces. But this is what we're seeing is these cycles, right? Uranos to Kronos to Zeus, even to Athena. It's all of these
mm.
things that are dominating that feminine power and utilizing it, raping it,
I
right?
mean, one of the reasons like I want to learn Greek is not just because I want to make sure I'm doing the Greek magical pyro right, but also these Greek playwrights and that wrote these stories are so subtle. It's not just about the basic story that we hear. When they're writing about it, they're showing us sides of human nature. You know, that's what the comedy and the tragedy masks are about. We're reflecting parts of our own nature, right? Whatever the character is. You know, they're taking on a persona. You know, we take on a persona. You know, multiple personality disorder is not the fact that we don't all have multiple personalities, which we do, but disorder is when they don't work properly together, you know?
That's
And
the
that's what,
things we
yeah,
tie it
and that's
together with astrology, and it's clear that the pantheon is in each person.
I mean,
exactly,
it's very clear when you get into
exactly.
Clouds and you get especially into the Scholia and all this, right?
Yeah.
He goes to the Hoopoe bird. He goes to Tyrius, the great black magician who
Yeah.
did what? Destroyed Procne, imprisoned Procne. And
Mhm.
there's all of this. And if you look at Solomon, Solomon is using the same bird magic. He's going to the same bird,
The
the
hoopoe
hoopoe,
bird. Yeah.
bird.
Bird, yeah.
There's a specific black magic tradition that they're highlighting here, which is about domination and control through this Yunks magic. Look at the Yunks, that spirit of the nymph. You bind her to the wheel, you break her, and you cast her into creation. That's what
And
they
that's
say.
that's
Valerius
actually
Flaccus says it's done to Medea.
that's the center of Buddhist Tantra too, by the way. You know, that's
Right.
Buddhism isn't peace, love, and brown rice, but that's the center of Buddhist tantric as practice as well. But you know, if you have, I always look at these pantheons and like if a particular deity disturbs me,
Mm.
you've got to examine inside yourself and you go, if I was in that situation and I was using my Zeus energy, if I was getting ready to throw thunderbolts at somebody, am I going to do it in a way that's going to cause all this chaos? Or am I going to do it because Zeus does do good stuff, you know, or am I going to do it from the highest level, you know, because we all have Zeus energy. To say Zeus energy is evil is demonizing a part of ourselves. It's
Well,
not
it's
the
part of that
energy.
solo.
It's
I'm not
it's
saying
how
it's
we use it.
well. It's okay.
Yeah,
We got to look at it through the cycle, okay? And
yeah.
we have to understand that these are all aspects of the sun. This is
Mm,
very clear from the tradition, right? So Zeus, for example, right, that is a complicated term because it refers to the literal power who's currently
mm,
occupying the throne, and it also confers to the highest form of this deity. But when they're talking about the sons of Zeus, all the sons of Zeus and all of the earlier iterations are on the same cycle. And we
mm,
see this explicitly, right? Saturn is the tyrant. It's the sun just before it dies at the solstice in the winter, but it consumes its children. It becomes decrepit because of its power. Zeus
mhm,
goes through the same cycles, right? Dionysus goes through the same cycles. You start off with the liberation. You destroy the previous tyrant. You bring in this new power. It's just like with the story of Clouds. At the end of Clouds, we all know where the story is going to go. He winds up as the tyrant. It begins in a good, beautiful thing. You've brought in a new law, you've brought in a new power, but absolute power leads to always the same result:
And
extraordinary decadence and the consumption of the children.
it's
That's what we
all right.
interesting
always
how
see
the
in the Greek myth.
title it refers
Mm,
back to the origin of the deity.
uh,
Primarily you're doing weather magic with a
mm,
spirit like Zeus.
mm,
You are you're talking about rain and crops,
mm.
okay,
Oh, he
and
embodies it.
flames. And
In
so
Greek literature, he's a
this
lot more than that as well. You know,
this
that's
turns
how he
into
started. Yeah,
allegories about politics at a later stage. And so you
Well,
can
this is the
see
earliest
why
yeah,
of the
Italian
story.
absolutely.
witches
Yeah,
now are
yeah.
just saying, you know what, drop all that. What I
Mm,
want you to do is I want you to go sit by the brook during a rainstorm.
mm,
Yeah,
That's it. Drop anything you've ever heard about Zeus and experience lightning with your
mm,
body. And that's the real one right there. That's the one you
yeah,
have a relationship with. That's the one you have a conversation with.
yeah. But there is value in the myth, right? The
yeah,
myth is to teach us moral lessons, what to do and what not to do. You know, it like Snappy, I can imagine you, I can visualize you as a person, as a Zeus that has ultimate power. You
yeah.
would not
And
do,
no,
and you wouldn't be
no,
corrupted by it.
no, no.
You wouldn't
Okay,
be
I
corrupted by it.
no, no. That's not how these things work. That's not
Yeah,
how decadence works. No,
yeah,
I am a
you wouldn't.
human being, and everyone. Here's the thing: this power always goes the same thing. There are no good billionaires. I'm sorry, I refuse to bend on this, and we disagree on this. But
We've had
it's
good
just an
discussions about this
impossibility.
before.
It's an impossibility.
Hello,
And it's
I've
Alexis.
met
something that
some very
is
good
like
billionaires,
it's
but
just something that is just essential to my entire personal philosophy and my entire
uh,
religious
uh,
understanding,
all
right?
right.
Is that I've connected. Just let me,
Health is
Mm,
you know,
balance.
okay, go for it. Mhm,
and like it's very clear to me when I look at this Saturnian cycle. It happens in literally every single aspect of reality. Every
It's as
single that which is
predictable
above
as
is the same
relationships. Yeah.
as that which is below, and the pattern. repeats always the same. We need to figure out how to break that pattern. I don't
We
think that
take
there's
control. We take control.
We take
Like
the
if
reins.
there are always an aspect of our life where we have complete control. And we see this with children when
we
they
have
get a
to accept
magnifying.
death.
Yeah.
This is the
We see
biggest thing. If you do not allow that next generation, I haven't even got to finish, right?
okay,
What I'm
sorry.
trying to, I'm just trying to explain here how important this whole thing is. We see
Mhm.
this from every single cultural idea on down. They all follow the same spiral arc. Born in a youthful vibrancy, rising to a height of Apollonian perfection, then succumbing to its own law and to its own extraordinarily defined ideals, and then it consumes itself. Art movements repeat this, philosophy movements repeat this, tribal groups repeat this,
Yeah, yeah,
history repeats this, the
yeah.
gods repeat this. This
And
has been
love will
tested,
follow the alchemical process no matter
Mhm.
what you do.
right? And so
And I,
the elder must give up power to the youth. He must walk away. The walk away and must relinquish. This is the
yeah,
thing. Absolute
absolutely.
power cannot be maintained. Power must be used. It must be spent. It must be shared. And
Eso.
that's the biggest thing. As soon as what
Absolutely.
we see in these cycles is Saturn, first Uranus refuses to give up power. Then Saturn refuses to give up power. Then Zeus refuses, and they prevent that next generation. They try to stop death and time. What is the big
Absolutely.
sin of Christianity? They're doing the same thing. They're trying to create an absolute God king who maintains control. Power must be
Mhm.
shared. You cannot
Mhm.
have absolute. As soon as you have absolute power, now you have also absolute evil. And this is what we always see. When people rise to so much power, decrepitude follows.
Well, words are very important, and control is a really chargy word
Yeah.
because I like to say take the reins because that make the person in control is the horse, yeah, but I've got the
Mm,
reins, and so I
mm,
have say so.
mm,
I have a voice in this, and to me that's the essential what it is to be a magus or a witch is I
Right.
have say so. If I think I have control, oh boy.
mhm. Oh, I have control of my life. Thank you very much. But, um, but Dion, but Snappy, this is what oh, sorry, I was having a very similar discussion with a friend of mine, another Dion.
No.
Um, and but what we see here is the myth, the moral, the story. If you do this, and with all Greek legends, if you do this, this will happen, right? If you do that, this will happen. But why don't you do this, right? And we see this whether it's a billionaire or a 5-year-old with a magnifying glass and some ants, right? A 5-year-old, an innocent child, can be evil. He can get that magnifying glass and start setting the ants on fire, right? Because he has the power, he has the magnifying glass, right? And you take that child and you give it a good shake and you go, you don't do that because that's cruel. The bottom line is Zeus gets a shake, um, uh, Saturn gets a shake, Kronos gets a shake, right? And they get taught that they don't do this or they get put in chains, right? And they have consequences for being the evil kid with the magnifying glass. You know, we all have that evil kid with the magnifying glass within us, and we've got to learn to rise to the higher, right? Rather than using whatever power we have, because there is some aspect in our life, no matter whether you're a billionaire or not, where you have ultimate control. And are you going if you run a cafe, are you going to be mean to the people that work for you in the cafe? Some people will be, right? If you're not, you can actually foster a family and help everybody in that cafe grow and evolve and maybe have their own cafe, which is what Zeus was not willing to do, right? So he got a shake. They all
See,
get a
that's
shake.
not control. That isn't controlling other people. That is creating an environment where people
Right.
have an agency of
The
themselves.
great
And so
sin
people are getting
is
what they want. That's not a control issue. I'm
the
not
Yeah,
great
that's
saying,
right.
obviously, I'm not saying my life is out of my hands, But what I'm saying is he's reacting to the word control and you keep insisting on using it. So maybe a little bit of elasticity there because it means different things to different people. What we're looking at with Epstein and all that is the dynamics of power and control,
It's
right?
control. It's okay. We should use, let's go to the Greek. The Greeks describe the ultimate evil in a very specific word. It's called pleonexia. Pleonexia,
What does it mean?
extreme greed for wealth or
Yes.
material possession, specifically the possession of other people, to possess the
Exactly.
will of other people, right?
Yeah.
And,
That's
you
very
know,
specific.
Yeah.
very, very specific. So the
Yeah.
ultimate greed, it's like, once you start to get into these absolutes of power and control, once you get into a god king that's demanding worship, right? Like a Zeus, then you're ultimately in that pleonexia. There's
Mhm,
just no way you're not operating in that form. You
mhm,
know, what we see too in the Greek traditions is the Greeks want democracy.
mhm.
Athena comes to replace Zeus and to usher in democracy. She doesn't take over as the head of the pantheon, right? She comes in to usher in a new way, which is supposed to be seen in Athens. And the new way is to share power. You don't have absolutes, right? As soon as you start possessing other people and possessing power, possession is the problem. Who
Yeah,
gets to
not
determine who owns what? The earth is the great mothers. None of us own anything,
No, I don't.
mhm.
Yeah.
But you
you
own
know?
yourself and you have to take responsibility for yourself and what you do.
Absolutely.
And that
Yes.
Yes,
means
absolutely.
whether or not you play the victim or you're empowered.
You're right. You're right. There is a lot of this victim stuff you're very right about. And we have to acknowledge that that's also part of this grandiose evil. You
Mm,
know, these people always tend to, it's the victim energy that leads to the justification of violence, always, right?
mm.
If you
I
look at
mean,
these myths,
everybody wants to nail a martyr to a tree. I don't blame them.
exactly.
Really, they're annoying. People that limp around being a martyr and crying all the time, give me a hammer and nail and do it right now.
You
They're
bring it upon
annoying.
yourself. You bring it upon yourself, like you said, right? Like, this is something I feel is important. We can talk about the magical perspective and we can kind of
Yeah.
wind up here, because so much about the magical perspective is about reclaiming how you look at life and
Mm.
recognizing you have that choice. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to try and reimagine, to
Hold on
reinterpret your
though.
story.
This is also the like therapy version of the word. The rainforest is a victim of clear cutting.
Right, right.
The,
That's
the women and boys that were trafficked are victims of trafficking. Let's
yeah,
not get confused. These are
right.
also legal terms. And the minute they're not, then they have no case. And so it's complicated. It's
Yeah,
complicated. Somebody
yeah.
doesn't want to be a victim of sex trafficking. They didn't
Oh,
plan that.
but I
Well,
can
this is
100%
also
tell you, as somebody who has been a victim of child
I,
abuse, I am nobody's victim now.
I
Nobody's.
hear you there.
right.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
why I feel like real goodness,
Yeah.
real justice is a complicated and empowering thing, and demands action, right? And this
Yes.
Mhm.
is part of the problem. Like, in our modern concept, we fall in prey to this Christian moralizing of goodness, where it leads to inaction, and it leads to a giving up of responsibility. And this is what allows for this kind of power to dominate us. It's because the
Mhm.
good do not stand up and empower themselves.
And
Athena
we
is
do have
good
a
in our
say
power.
so, right? We do
Mhm.
have a
Right.
say so. But just because I was abused as a child and I spent a long time healing
Yeah.
from that doesn't mean I can't be abused as an old lady. I very well
Right.
can be. And it's
Yeah.
not my fault. It's not that I've done anything wrong. It's not that I've allowed it to
Mm.
happen. It's that shit happens, man. And
No,
there's
Mhm.
that's true.
enough bad
True.
actors out there, you
It's
know.
it's 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 one of these
I'm
things where,
lucky. I'm
Mhm.
lucky that
right,
I haven't run into any trouble
No.
today. You know.
you
And
know,
this is what
I
this is
don't
what
mean
magic
to,
is about, making sure you're in the right place at the right time, empowered
Yeah.
enough so that
Well,
never
we do our
happens again.
best. We do our best. Yeah.
No, it will never
life is
happen again.
complicated. But
Yeah.
if we're focusing on the perspective and
Yeah.
how we can use the perspective. This is what the Magus does. And this is all, it's not about, okay, life is horrific for many people. And for
Mm,
many people, the magical path is not afforded to them. And that's
mhm,
just a reality. And we all have to deal with the position that we find ourselves in. And it's
mm,
complicated. But if we're removing
There.
those individualistic elements and we're looking at it from a pure mental perspective, right?
mm,
What I'm trying to get at, and there's no judgment here. There's no
mm,
judgment here. But we can we can utilize these magical techniques to reclaim our perspective and to
mm,
try to look at life in a more beautiful way and utilize those powers of story to boost
mhm.
ourselves. If we, you
Yep.
know this, both of you working with the spirits, if you tell a
Mm,
beautiful story, if you ask and you say it in an interesting way, then life makes it happen. The world
mm,
wants to participate. They want to sing and dance with you. There's
mm,
truth in this, right?
mm,
And we all go through such horror in life. And
mm,
we have to remember that if we can change our perspective and look to the beautiful, that's our best way to conquer the horror, at
Well,
least
and
from my life.
if we're in touch with the earth, if our bodies are in tune with the earth, if we engage the elements in active conversation, we have a better chance of being present in the moment and not only averting danger, but being aware of many more choices than we're aware of in our isolated consciousness.
mm,
Right,
mm,
right. When we fall into those trappings of fear and overthinking, people think that, what ends up happening is you isolate your world right down. Everything becomes about getting at you. And then you're
mm,
no longer seeing things with clarity and you miss the signs, the synchronicities, you miss the opportunities. You're caught up in this self-defining loop and you repeat the same cycles, often out of self-defense, but that doesn't serve anyone.
yeah.
And a
Defense
bet,
or
and
ignorance. Yeah. Hmm.
and this is the
Yeah.
hardest thing is trying to, we're all abused, we're all coming from positions of abuse, especially anyone who is a woman, and we
Mm,
have to learn to, try and overcome that and face the bright new dawn. And that's
mm,
such a difficult thing, but that's all we can do,
mm, mm.
you know?
It is.
I just,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got to continue our evolution and become more empowered and more empowered. And magic is a beautiful tool to do that.
It really
Hmm.
Right.
is.
Mm.
All right. Well, we should wind down here, guys. I think this was a wild conversation. Do either of you
Yeah,
have
Fun.
anything you want to
love a good
end
debate.
with?
It's good.
Me
Yeah,
too.
Yeah. Thank you for
Becky, love you
facilitating
so
this,
much.
Snappy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you for facilitating this. This was great.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, is there anything you want to promote, Shay, before we end today, or any last words?
No, like there's still people looking at that song from last time. So I honor our beautiful young men. So if you get a chance, go have a look at the anti-look maxing song. It's I've got a YouTube music channel, so go and have a look at that. But it's on Spotify. So in praise of young men, you can have a look at it.
Go search Shay deMontford and make sure you subscribe to her at Magic Magazine. Leslie,
Mhm.
do you want to promote anything? Do you have any final words?
Oh, well, I do private sessions and I'm always open to all kinds of whatever you got to bring me.
Mhm.
Hopefully, right, I just moved and I'll be picking up where I left off with book 2 of Becoming Numa, and that'll be on Spotify and on the Discord
Mhm.
Amazing.
as it emerges page by page.
Are you
I am a
inspired again?
Leo,
Has the
so
muse
if I
returned?
get a like, it really helps me like have the courage to do the next chapter.
Okay, I will
So
make sure to like
any
because I read it. I
encouragement
don't
at
always like.
all.
I don't always like. I'll double. I'll make sure to double that. But have you got inspiration again? I know that you were struggling with connecting to the muse in terms of
Oh
becoming.
yeah. Well, having landed here, I really get why they wanted me in this place, which is different from the place that I thought I wanted. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And it's actually ideal. It's so much better than anything I could have imagined for myself. That when it's like that, I just let go. And
That's so
so
beautiful.
it's real quiet. And I'm like, oh, goody. As soon as I get like the furniture arranged, I can already feel the words coming again. Yeah.
That's amazing. So how do people contact you if they want to get in touch with you? You do spiritual counseling and you do spirit sessions where you can contact ancestors, any
Yeah.
kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
Leslie is a practitioner of voodoo and Santeria, initiated in several different secret societies, and is very, very accomplished. What's your email for people to get in touch with you?
That's my name, Leslie dot Selene, Selene at yahoo.com.
All right. Well, thank you guys both. This has been beautiful. Make
Thanks
sure you
so
go
much,
support.
Shay. I always enjoy you so much.
Oh,
All right.
thank you.
And we'll send our love to Dion. We'll get in touch with him, and I'm sure we'll do more of these in the future. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shay.
Coolio.
Thank you,
Bye,
Leslie. Much love
everybody.
to you both.
Ciao,
All
Love you
right.
both.
babes.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.